Hey, before we get into the video, I would like to thank some Patreons who contributed to the channel. Aussie Zero, Worst Spy TF2, Kid Named Finger, Thomas Haynes, James Westbrook Jr., AJ Likes Fries, Tulip Mango, Soup for Days, Silent, and Emerald Henry. Thank you all for contributing to the channel. Patreon link is in the description to help support the channel. Anything helps, and you'll be eligible for benefits based on any amount you give. With that out of the way, let's continue to what if Geoff and Bridgette competed in the Ridonculous Race. Bridgette and Geoff have a confessional, bummed about the Rockers getting eliminated last episode, but they still choose to take the race less seriously to really enjoy the experience more, having learned a lot from taking it easy from them. Stephanie has been getting bothered in the previous episodes by the comments Bridgette and Geoff made about her being a bad partner to Ryan, and the Rockers agreeing with them. So to try and counteract those opinions, she tries being nicer to Ryan in this episode. The first glimpse of this is seen when the ice dancers still taunt Stephanie for being rude towards them first, as they climb up a mountain path to the train station. Ryan laughs at them taunting Stephanie and continues laughing at her in a confessional, but instead of letting out a loud groan of annoyance, Stephanie tries to nicely play along and agree with Ryan, forcing a smile. Ryan seems more confused and reassured, as her trying to hold back her anger is very unconvincing and kinda scary. Originally, Geoff and Brody bumped into Noah and Emma while they were walking up the mountain and ruined their opportunity for their first kiss. Bridgette here instead, who would be a lot more careful, and Geoff and Bridgette agreeing to enjoy the experiences of the race more, they would just stop and watch the lovebirds kiss. Geoff and Bridgette congratulate them as they head past them to the train station. Both Kitty and Owen stare at each other worried about that having been seen by another team. Kitty has a confessional of Emma, telling her about how precarious it is that another team knows how close they are to Noah and Owen now. Emma hardly cares with her brain still singing about the kiss with Noah. Emma hardly cares with her brain still singing about the kiss of Noah. When the first train consisting of the haters, the ice dancers, and the goths arrive to the dawn box that presents the either or, Stephanie again holds a forced smile as she respectfully asks Ryan which one he thinks they should do. Ryan again looks awkward, asking if he chooses, will she stop doing whatever that is she's doing with her face. The ice dancers notice this awkward exchange of forced kindness by Stephanie, confused and confessional about why she's trying to act nice, since they agree she is usually just terrible. Given Ryan's initial hesitance for bungee jumping, and now having the choice himself, he would probably pick the dancing. The memorization of dance moves involved in this task seems like a bad match for all of Stephanie's pent-up aggression, putting her off focus, so she would mess up a lot of times, adding to her annoyance even more. When Geoff and Brody made the choice themselves, Brody was the one talking about how sick it seemed and Geoff said nothing, so it's a little unclear if Geoff would still be as pumped to do the bungee jumping, since Geoff and Bridgette again are stopping to enjoy the race more, and bungee jumping sounds like much more of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity than memorizing the dance, they would choose the bungee jumping. The haters originally hogged up the chance of bungee jumping a lot in the original, since they just kept pushing each other off to vent their anger towards each other. Without them taking up the bungee cord, the teams that choose that way can go much quicker about completing the task. Despite this, I still think Noah and Emma would waste time at the bridge together. They still would probably be waiting on the cadets and goths to finish up since they got there first. During this, Bridgette and Geoff see Emma and Noah set up a pose to take a cute couples photo, and unlike Kitty who wants them to focus, they embrace the love and take the photo for them. Emma and Noah are thankful for their help and marvel at the cute photo of them together. Kitty and Owen, on the other hand, are still nervous to see how much Geoff and Bridgette know about this, making them offer the place ahead of them in line for the bungee cord to keep in their good graces. While Bridgette bungee jumps down, Owen and Kitty lean over to Geoff to talk about Noah and Emma testing the waters to see if Geoff plans to tell anyone. Geoff, noticing their fear, promises that he'll keep it a secret, loves a beautiful saying, and he would never weaponize it. This makes Owen and Kitty relieved to hear that and admire his good heart in the matter, knowing it would really ruin their chances if other teams knew just how close they were. Ryan worries even more watching Stephanie slowly get more and more angry at the task until she eventually blows up and yells about the challenge, insistently complaining, scolding the dance instructors, then performing the dance moves extremely aggressively. The dance instructors are thoroughly terrified by the outbursts and decide to give them the clue to continue, since the dance, while not the one instructed, was very effective at scaring them off like the dance is meant to do because it's meant to be an intimidating dance, and they're also just very scared of Stephanie and want her to leave. The top teams for this challenge would still be the ice dancers coming in first since they completed the dance super quickly, the best friends coming in second since Devin also completed the dance pretty quickly because he was going through the anger stage of the breakup, and the goths now instead of the cadets who originally got third, because the goths got to the bungee jumping way earlier and were seconds behind the cadets originally, so now without the haters having hugged up the bungee cord, I think they could have finished much earlier. The haters arrive to the golden carpet, where Stephanie is still stewing in her own anger, and Ryan looks completely scared of her. Dawn rushes them off the carpet, also noticing Stephanie's intense aura. Shortly after they walk off the carpet, Geoff and Bridgette come onto the carpet next. Stephanie stares back at them as they smile together. She assertively tells Ryan she's gonna go cool off on her own, and Ryan doesn't taunt or challenge that at all, glad to let her get away from him. The ice dancers smile at each other, noticing coals being added to the flames of Stephanie's rage when she saw Bridgette and Geoff. So Jose decides to follow Stephanie to try and get some more intel on that. The bottom teams for this challenge would remain the same. It would still be father-son, with Dad trying to act cool in the dance and not doing it right, Owen and Noah, and the sisters, because Emma and Noah got distracted by each other, and it also includes the sisters running ahead of them at the last second to get Owen and Noah to come last, Emma to break up with Noah temporarily for the race, Noah become defeated, but they aren't eliminated because it's a non-elimination episode. Jose follows Stephanie and hides behind a bush, watch her mutter angrily to herself. She talks incessantly about Geoff and Bridgette, being annoyed by how perfect they are and the fact that she can't be a good partner like them. She punches her fist towards the rock wall, making it crack a bit but also hurt her fist. Jose now steps out from the bush to talk with Stephanie. Stephanie is at first still aggressive and mad that Jose followed her. Once Jose advises that she really shouldn't compare herself to Geoff and Bridgette, they aren't as perfect as she thinks, Stephanie's interest is piqued and her anger calms down. She asks her to elaborate on what that means, and Jose, wearing a devious grin, remembers overhearing Geoff cheated on Bridgette in Hawaii when they were walking over the coals, so she informs Stephanie of that very fact. Stephanie becomes even more infuriated as she realizes the perfect two she had been angry that she couldn't match this entire time were actually also a terrible couple. She begins hitting everything around her and yelling, while Jose walks off with a massive smile. The next episode begins with the ice dancers getting the first hint and talking confessional pleas with their previous wins, as well as the massive damper they put on Stephanie, and what they are sure to be Geoff and Bridgette's reputation when Stephanie undoubtedly fails at not confronting Geoff and Bridgette about the cheating. On the first flight containing every team except those that were in the bottom last episode, Ryan is seen bandaging up Stephanie's hand while Stephanie glares at Geoff and Bridgette. In confessional, Ryan comments on how badly beaten up her hands are, asking what she said happened again. Stephanie mutters that she tripped and landed on her fist multiple times. Ryan can obviously tell she's lying, but holds her hands and just tells her that she should try and not trip over today and maybe take it easy. Stephanie's anger seems to reside for a moment, seeing how gentle and considerate Ryan's being, and says she'll try. Geoff and Brody were originally the first ones to get to the bull riding place, and the first to get the task of eating a large pot of pork and beans. And I still think Geoff and Bridgette would be able to pull that off because it wasn't anything that Brody did. It was more that the cadets sent the ice dancers steaming off the road. That would still happen and leave the door open for them. Bridgette is a vegetarian, but I do think she would be able to help with this by picking out any bits of pork in her bites and just eat the beans. There is still cross-contamination since the beans and porks are mixed together, which I definitely don't think Bridgette would be thrilled about, but as we saw with the bunch of discussing this, Bridgette was willing to break her vegetarian ways if absolutely necessary and a challenge, and while it is in theory possible to make Geoff eat the whole pot, it would be much more difficult and lose them too much time. Also, I think with how vegetarian ways almost got them last place with the skewer challenge last time, Bridgette would want to make up with that, so that combined with the fact that she wouldn't even be directly eating meat by just focusing on the beans, she would choose to help Geoff out by eating the pot like that. The haters come in next, and Stephanie still finds the beans to be the grossest food ever and struggles eating them. This perfectly annoys her again, watching Bridgette exclusively eat the beans. She considers going to confront them about the cheating, but she follows her promise to Ryan to try and go easy today by not blowing up at them. Ryan is still friendly with Geoff and Bridgette, and after asking Bridgette how she's eating it while staying true to her vegetarian diet, she tells him about how she's only eating the beans. This gives Ryan the same idea but the inverse for Stephanie, suggesting she only targets the pork, but still despising Geoff and Bridgette and wanting to prove that she's better. Stephanie takes a full spoonful of both beans and pork to her mouth to try and eat it, but every time it comes near her mouth she gags, annoying Ryan. Originally, Geoff and Brody were able to finish their pots super early because of both their massive appetites and iron stomachs. Now without Brody's help, I don't think they would finish as quickly. I do still think they'd be one of the first couple of teams to finish, probably just getting beat out by the Goffs and Best Friends, who were the next teams to finish their pots after Geoff and Brody, since Geoff does seem like he did scarf down the pot pretty well in his own regard, and they were still the first team to start on their pot. The next challenge involved one member of the team riding a mechanical bull for 8 seconds, and the member was decided as the one that didn't grab the clue at the bottom of the pot to read it. Originally, Geoff grabbed it first between him and Brody, but now that Geoff just finished the majority of the pot, I think his stomach would be hurting a bit after finishing it off, so Bridgette would grab the clue, making Geoff be the one that has to ride the bowl. I don't think Geoff would be as bad as Brody with the bowl, but with his hurting stomach and past experience we've seen of him bull riding an island extreme challenge where he failed miserably, I do think he would still struggle getting the 8 seconds. Being about equal in ability to someone like Devin, who took about 5 rides or so to complete the task. Ryan and Stephanie would finish their pot after Geoff has gone in the bowl a couple times and flown off each time. The last time was particularly bad as he got launched into the empty bar on the other side of the room. Bridgette places Geoff's arm around her shoulder and walks him back to the bowl, as Geoff, dazed, expresses thankfulness for her support. Watching them support each other so close to Stephanie makes her grumble, and with the annoyance already being at an all-time high from how much she hated eating the beans, she goes off on Geoff and Bridgette in front of everyone, revealing Bridgette's past cheating and condemning them for having judged her previously. Most of the teams gasp, as none of the teams really showed having any knowledge of total drama, so this would be a huge surprise to them. Geoff also looks a bit mad about remembering Bridgette doing that again, since it's still a very unpleasant memory. Owen watches the people murmur and Bridgette look ashamed, and feeling a bit indebted to them for being so cool about the Noah and Emma relationship. Also, he just likes Bridgette and Geoff from their time in Total Drama in general. He steps into their defense, pointing out that it wasn't like Bridgette cheated on a perfect person, recounting Geoff as an aftermath host in action, where he did stunts that put the well-being of all their friends in danger after becoming fame-obsessed. The teams gasp again, surprised to learn that about Geoff, making Owen realize his mistake of making it even worse. This also now causes Bridgette to look at Geoff a bit angrily, remembering him doing all that. This makes them both break out into an argument in front of everyone. The ice dancers wear a delighted smile, as does Stephanie, who tells Ryan to come along to the bowl now. Ryan follows, but looks back worried at Geoff and Bridgette as they are still arguing with each other. Stephanie still crushes the bull ride in her first attempt, but is annoyed when she sees Ryan displeased with her after she finishes. Stephanie just rolls her eyes and continues in the challenge. How Geoff and Brody to get first like they originally do, Stephanie and Ryan would get first since they originally got second, being followed by the best friends and Goffs. Since best friends came in third and Goffs came in fourth. Stephanie celebrates at winning, but Ryan is still angry with her and walks off the carpet without joining her celebration. This makes Stephanie look guilty for a second, but quickly brushes it off. Geoff still finishes the bowl in his next couple tries, and they continue to the carpet with both of them still being mad at each other and not talking. The bottom teams would all still be the same, Ice Dancers coming third to last, Noah and Owen coming second to last, and father and son coming in very last and being eliminated. Ryan and Stephanie start off the race as Stephanie still feels the judgment from Ryan, but tries to get him to push aside his anger and be a big boy since they are in first place and they should keep it. When it's revealed they are flying to the Arctic Circle, Ryan grins and says it should be perfect for Stephanie. They can finally go somewhere that's as cold on the outside as she is on the inside. All teams fly in small planes in groups of 2 based on the order in which they placed last episode. Which is, the first 2 teams here, next 2 teams there, that order. So it's changed now with Geoff and Brody not placing first. The haters would fly with the best friends with not much conversation in groups as the haters are still mad at each other, and Carrie is too busy dealing with Devin in the sadness stage of the heartbreak. The sisters fly with Geoff and Bridgette, who are still mad at each other. When they learn they are going somewhere cold, Geoff says he really hopes there aren't any cute poles there to slow them down. Bridgette curves back, and she really hopes there aren't any baby polar bears that haven't learned how to lie, otherwise he'll be forced to drop an anvil on their head for ratings. Kitty and Emma have a confessional talking about the news they heard about Geoff and Bridgette, still feeling the shell shock of having learned about the bodies in their closet. But Kitty feels like she can help them with her love doctor skills and convinces a reluctant Emma to also try and help them out for keeping her and Noah a secret. Goffs and cadets fly together where I don't imagine much would happen. I expect MacArthur to probably be annoyed by their lack of reactions and tries to make them show any expression of emotion by scaring them or telling them sad stories, but nothing happens because the Goffs still remain stoic. Originally, the haters going to the Dawn box second got the boomerang. Now with them being in first place, they wouldn't get the boomerang, instead finding itself in the hands of Devin and Carrie. Carrie isn't as excited as the daters were though, since she's nice and she doesn't want to have to use it on another team. The first challenge consisted of the team member that didn't ride the bowl last episode to have to throw a golden ring onto the horn of a narwhal. Geoff rode the bowl, so Bridgette has to do this. Bridgette has already been seen in the series to be very clumsy at times, so I already don't think she'd have the hand-eye coordination to be good at this, combined with how off-focused she'd be from her and Geoff's fighting fighting, they'd be here for a long time. The sisters finish before them, and Emma tries to get Kitty to continue in the challenge and leave Geoff and Bridgette to keep fighting. Kitty is reluctant, but her previous attempts to have them make up just made their fighting worse, so agrees to continue, knowing she isn't making it any better. Devin and Carrie were one of the last teams to get to the next Dawn box, which is the last time they could use the boomerang. Originally, the Ice Dancers got to the Dawn box a good couple of minutes before the best friends arrived, but now the best friends being on the first flight, I think they would be here just before the Ice Dancers, putting Carrie in a difficult position as she doesn't want to use the boomerang on another team, but can also reason to herself that it's part of the game and the Ice Dancers are a really strong team. The Ice Dancers likely try to negotiate with Carrie to not do it, and they seem to be getting through to her. But Devin, who's still in his sad, not caring phase, would be tired of all this thinking on something that doesn't even matter because we're all gonna die or something like that. He takes it from Carrie's hand and places it on the Ice Dancers. The Ice Dancers are shocked, as is Carrie, but the best friends continue further in the challenge. Carrie confronts Devin in a confessional about doing that, and Devin still acts uncaring, saying, "So what? Why does it matter if they hurt them? The world will rip your heart, smash it on the ground until it stops beating, and then hand it to your ex's tennis coach to devour right in front of you." And Carrie doesn't even respond, just staring at Devin breathing heavy from exploring that part of his break of emotions. Geoff and Bridgette are still at the narwhals, as are the police cadets. Originally the haters were here too, but that's because they played the boomerang on themselves. Now since they never got it, they couldn't do that. The cadets finish up, but just as the Ice Dancers come back. Geoff and Bridgette digs are starting to get received with more sadness than annoyance as they continue and seeing that progress start to seep in, Jose and Jacques add fuel to their fire to keep their fighting going. The top for this challenge would be the sisters coming in first, best friends second, and the haters in third. Originally, Geoff and Brody finished first, and then the Ice Dancers, with everything going on in those teams, they obviously don't do that anymore. And then behind them, originally the sisters came in third, and then I think with the best friends and haters doing much better this time, them both being on the first plane and getting to the ice sculptures relatively quick, I think they'd be able to take second and third. Geoff and Bridgette are the last people at the narwhals after the Ice Dancers finish a second time. Geoff and Bridgette are not naturally angry people, and they both struggle a lot holding grudges against people. So after they've exhausted every insult at each other, no longer speaking of vitriol but remorse, they realize they have no reason to be fighting for each other anymore, because what they both did to make the other person mad was done in the past, and they had already learned to forgive each other and move on from those things. So there's no reason to unlearn that forgiveness and reopen those wounds. They both apologize for what they've done in the past, and most importantly sincerely forgive the other person for what they've done and hug it out. The narwhals watching the emotional scene clap their flippers together, and one leans forward, giving Bridgette an easy way to place a hoop around its horn. Bridgette takes the opportunity, and they continue in the challenge. Unfortunately, they are way too far behind and still come in last. Dawn still reveals this a non-elimination round, keeping them safe. Ryan still implements his "say yes Stephanie" tactic to everything Stephanie says, but unlike the original where it was his way of getting back at her, it's his genuine defense to the still immense disappointment he feels towards her for what she did to Geoff and Bridgette. Geoff and Bridgette start last, but keep good spirits at their refound connection. Bridgette, with all the messy fighting out of the way, now realizes how the Ice Dancers were instigating them to argue more at the narwhals, and suggests they keep an eye on them. The Ice Dancers have a confessional, holding a grudge with the best friends, ready to destroy them today for messing with them, but they play nice on the plane of the best friends, acting accommodating to them, and even act like the boomerang is water under the bridge. This makes the best friends have a confessional where Carrie falls for their act and scolds Devin for doing that to them so brashly, which Devin, still in the sad phase, doesn't even care. On the plane, Geoff and Bridgette try to talk to teams around them, but teams turn away from them as they try to talk, making Geoff and Bridgette realize their popularity is still very damaged about the information that came out about them, upsetting them a bit as neither of them are used to having people not like them. Still, they remain positive and assure that all they need is each other's support to win this. When the Ice Dancers get to the Komodo Dragon spot, Jose is ready to get revenge on the best friends, but Jock still wants to make sure they get some Komodo Dragon saliva first. Jose agrees and suggests they split up. She'll focus on making sure the best friends lose, and he focuses on getting them spit. Chuck wants to object out of fear of achieving spit from the deadly lizards, but they fall on deaf ears as Jose has already run off. I have no clear idea on how Geoff and Bridgette would go about achieving saliva, since Brody was originally the one who single-handedly got the spit for their duo. Geoff had an initial idea of using a fire extinguisher because he thought that Komodo dragons breathe fire like fairy tale dragons, because they're called dragons and he's dumb. Bridgette would explain to Geoff it's not the case, but Geoff remains extremely doubtful of that. He references that children's books don't lie, and they all say dragons breathe fire. He even assures Bridgette to not worry, because once they defeat the dragon, he will not go save the princess and marry her, because he already has Bridgette. Bridgette is thankful in a sense that he says that, but asks Geoff if they can try her way first. Geoff agrees, but says he'll have a fire extinguisher just in case. So Bridgette would go for the typical approach that most teams took of just trying to find the sleeping Komodo dragons and sneak the vial near their mouth. Since that's the common sense way to go about doing this, Stephanie still gets ran up a tree by a Komodo dragon and asks for help from Ryan. Ryan, seeing how she needs his help, decides to exploit the situation, telling her he'll help her if she tells him why she revealed those secrets of Geoff and Bridgette to everyone. Stephanie hardly budges and just says that she was disgusted with the information and felt like everyone should know. Ryan smugly responds, "No, Stephanie," knowing she's being dishonest. Stephanie starts to become annoyed, but gives a slightly more honest answer of she wanted to bring them down a peg. Ryan again smugly says, "Warmer." Stephanie breaks and attacks the Komodo dragon to scale down the tree and yell at Ryan to finally admitting, feeling inadequate about how much better they are at being supportive teammates, that she's completely unable to match them in. Ryan seems happy that she finally admitted the truth and comforts Stephanie that her aggression can be very irritating to deal with. But she just defeated a massive deadly dragon lizard all by herself because of that anger. That anger is their great advantage, and admits seeing that fire in her eyes makes him so into her sometimes. Stephanie smiles, and they have a tender moment staring at each other sweetly, before Stephanie barks an order at Ryan to go collect the saliva for making her deal with that on her own. Ryan is not upset about the boxing list this time though, immediately going to follow her order. Without Jose with Jock to want to sabotage the Goths, they no longer would sabotage / unconveniently give them a good idea of using Loki the rabbit as bait to collect saliva, but with Jock's intelligence and more prominently his cowardice, he would see the Komodo dragons are afraid of the Goths and just follow them to take the fruits of their spoils once they get the saliva of themselves, and also he just wants to be safe of all the Komodo dragons avoiding the Goths. Since the Goths didn't get the plan in their mind to use Loki, it would probably take them a bit longer to get saliva, but with the massive advantage they have wearing Komodo dragon repellent deodorant, they would still be able to finish much quicker before any other team, and Jock would steal some of the extra saliva for himself, like they did originally. Jose finds Devin and Carrie sneaking around a bunch of sleeping Komodo dragons. She grins and climbs a nearby tree. She crawls to the end of a branch and begins shaking it rapidly, making all the mangoes from that branch start to plummet onto the Komodo dragons below, waking them up extremely angered, which they direct towards Devin and Carrie since they're the only people that they can see in their immediate area. The best friends scream and run away as an army of Komodo dragons chase them, delighting Jose. The top for this challenge is the Goths coming in first because they still have the massive advantage. Daters coming in second because they originally came in third, but they wouldn't be able to come in second now. Jose would have been off of the best friends sabotaging them, lost too much time having to meet up again to, continue in the challenge. And the sisters originally come in fourth, but same reason they get bumped up to third because of the ice dancers. Bridgette would be happy looking at a full vial of saliva that she snuck near a Komodo dragon's mouth, but in typical clumsy Bridgette fashion, she loses her balance and falls into Komodo dragon's head. The lizard wakes up and sends Bridgette lying back on the ground. It stumbles its way towards Bridgette, who can't escape, and she is saved by the last moment from Geoff spraying the dragon down with a fire extinguisher, making it scurry away from the awful taste of fire extinguisher foam. Geoff takes Bridgette in his hands, and she hugs him, thankful for saving her. She restates again that they still don't breathe fire like the fairy tales say. Geoff asks if she's sure, because he's never been more sure about anything in his life that he's holding a true princess right now. Bridgette giggles, but their moment is soured when they notice Jose, by herself, running past them while mischievously laughing. Already having been suspicious of them from yesterday, and then seeing Jose by herself and laughing, they find it all suspect and follow back the way she came to see if they find anything off. Devin and Carrie are growing tired from running as they are forced up onto a large rock while Komodo dragons circle them. The mortal fear from the situation makes Devin move out of his sad breakup stage and finally come to terms with the breakup. Carrie is happy for him, and seeing it looks like they aren't going to make it out of this alive, she begins to try and tell Devin about her true feelings for him. Before she does, Geoff and Bridgette appear from the bushes, making noise to get the Komodo dragon's attention off Carrie and Devin. As they turn towards Geoff and Bridgette, Geoff, still having the fire extinguisher on standby, sprays down all the dragons as Devin and Carrie run off to safety. Geoff and Bridgette chase them down to ask about what happened. They don't mention Jose they didn't see or mess with them above in the tree, but explained the mangoes falling out of the tree to provoke them seeming very sudden. Geoff and Bridgette looked to each other and informed them about Jose's evil laughter. Carrie and Devin are both pretty forgiving people, and I don't think the connection is enough to be sure that Jose was involved, and they also don't want to make stronger enemies out of the Ice Dancers by siding against them after they already boomeranged them, but they do thank Geoff and Bridgette for saving them and continuing the challenge, since they do still need to collect spit. The bottom teams for this challenge would be the best friends, Noah, Owen, and the cadets. And here's the hard thing with these bottom teams, is that I think all of them are actually very close to being eliminated in this episode, because they all have very big things that slow them down. Noah and Owen got very slowed down in the original because the weird method of getting the saliva were seduced by a Komodo dragon, got slept on it for a while, and then Owen knocked down a bunch of carpets in the second part, which got Noah buried in a bunch of carpets. Devin and Carrie were obviously very slowed down by Jose's sabotaging, and the cadets got stuck up in a tree for 90% of the challenge, and the only reason they were able to get to the finish line so quickly is because Geoff and Brody also got stuck up the tree with them, and Brody's the one who quickly got the Komodo dragon saliva for the cadets. So without Brody here to do any of that for them now, they would waste all that time in the tree, eventually get down, but then still have to find a way to get Komodo dragon saliva. Of these three teams, Devin and Carrie are probably in the best to come third to last, because I still think they have enough time to figure out the saliva. Noah and Owen's like a weird spot where I do think they'd get the saliva first and get to the carpet section before any of these three teams, but then they'd fall behind when Noah gets covered in carpets. But I think Devin and Carrie are safe in this elimination, leaving it now between Noah and Owen, which was the original elimination, or the cadets. In the original elimination, we saw that Noah peeked his head from the pile very quickly when the promise of Emma giving him a kiss came out. Now, I still don't think that would happen before the challenge ends because Emma wouldn't be there because she already got to the finish line, but this showed that Noah wasn't like injured or incapable of freeing himself from the carpet he was buried under. With enough time, a minute or two, he'd be able to free himself from the carpet, and I definitely just feel like that could happen timeline-wise a lot quicker than it would take for cadets to fully get saliva, which they had made no progress on from when they got to the bottom of the tree, and without Brody, they have no way of really doing that. So the cadets would be eliminated here, meaning we finally have our first change elimination, this what if from the original. Yippee. Stephanie yells down a taxi once all the teams depart the plane. She then displays her arms towards the open door for Ryan, who happily gets in and thanks her. They have a confessional revealing that after the challenge, they talked more about Stephanie's rage and agreed that Ryan will let her complain and use her anger as long as Stephanie agreed to not direct any of the anger at Ryan directly. Stephanie agreed to this since it allows her the best of both worlds by allowing herself to be aggressive and competitive but still not feel judged about being a bad partner, and now with this balance they are more strong and more focused on the race than ever before. They say while longingly looking into each other's eyes, showing that they might not be as focused as they say. The ice dancers are irate to see the best friends still here, with Jock exacerbatedly asking what Jose did to sabotage them because clearly it wasn't enough, and accuses Jose of losing her edge. Jose is insulted by the comment, leading to her ramming into the back of one of the other team's taxi to show it to Jock. Originally they rammed into the back of the Goffs because they were jealous of them placing first when they could have had it. Since they couldn't have had it now, since they chose to sacrifice the first placement to eliminate the best friends, they wouldn't ram into them for that reason. Yet I see no reason that the Goffs still wouldn't have been in the car in front of the ice dancers during this aggression, especially since the best friends took very long to get on the road, so they would still ram into the Goff's taxi. Jock in confessional is unamused, saying, "Breaking our car so we fall behind really shows your edge." Originally, Emma was able to get her head back in the game, encouraging Kitty to slap her whenever she was dazing off thinking about Noah, and agreed with Kitty's choice on not doing the magic because of this. But with how Emma and Noah were struggling more with not getting distracted by each other, seeing in previous episodes how they took time away from the challenge and them still being here, Emma would want to do the magic to join up with Noah. Kitty takes charge of their team, slaps Emma, and says they are doing the buggies. Emma is annoyed, however, unable to stop the determined Kitty from getting her back in the game. This causes Kitty and Emma to have a confessional. Kitty apologizes for slapping her, but they've been on a hot streak, placing in the top 3 consistently, and Emma has to remember she isn't dating Noah during the race because she's been slacking on that recently. Emma bites back that if she's been slacking and they've still been placing top 3, then it's not a big deal, and Kitty's the one who started with getting them together, so it's really hypocritical for her to go back on that. Noah and Owen come up to the choice, and I don't know why Noah really would have an interest in doing the magic, but Emma seemed pretty convinced that he would, and she probably knows Noah better than me, so Noah and Owen would choose the magic. Originally, Geoff and Brody were able to complete the remote-controlled dune buggy challenge really quickly because Brody was good at video games. Bridgette doesn't seem like much of a gamer to me, and I also think she'd be stressed about controlling such a dangerous vehicle with Geoff in it, so their first attempts fail from going too slow. The daters would still complete the magic trick in similar time, but in a slightly different way. Originally, Stephanie forced Ryan into the box with the lion, but switched when he failed, and then fought the lion. A couple things changed now. Stephanie wouldn't force Ryan into the box since they were both feeling more in love with each other again, and it would be similar to the beginning of the race where they want to protect each other, both dramatically asking each other to let them be the ones that face the danger. Ryan insists that he protects her from it and goes first, ripping the dress due to the small hole in his large size, still making the lion laugh at him. This, however, makes Stephanie angry to see the lion taunt Ryan, making her switch in his place, beat up the lion, which would lead to the success of this trick. There are other things to note now that cause them to go slower though, being the extra team taking this magic option in Owen and Noah, so they have to wait longer for them to have a churn to be able to succeed at this. The top for this challenge would still be the Goths because they completed the magic trick really quickly, the sisters because Kitty was said to be an extremely good gamer, and the only reason she got set back so much in the original challenge is because she got into a little bit of a feud with MacArthur while operating the remote control, but now since MacArthur isn't here, she wouldn't get into that scuffle and she'd be able to complete it a lot faster. And the third team being the daters. Originally they were second, but again, because I think Kitty were able to save a lot of time with the controllers, I see them being able to overtake the daters in second. There would be prevalent annoyance from Emma when they complete second, noting they could have had plenty of time to not be last in the race and still have fun with Noah. Eventually, I think Geoff and Bridgette would have to switch roles, as Geoff, while not directly stated, I assume would be much better at video games, and after seeing Bridgette was too timid and uncertain with the controllers, would know he has to step in. This means that when Carrie and Devin arrive with Carrie struggling greatly with the controller, Geoff would take time to teach her the basics, making Carrie feel better but also worried as she sees how a supportive person sees her needs and helps, while Devin's just been obsessed with winning and ignoring Carrie all day. Geoff operating the buggy, him and Bridgette could finish relatively soon after. I don't believe Noah and Owen would be great at the magic, especially because the scrawny Noah is the only one who would be able to fit in the box, and Owen isn't very smart, so I could see him struggling with the lever. But ultimately, I don't see him taking any longer than the bottom two for this challenge originally, who both had to switch their tasks, the best friends and the ice dancers. I still think the best friends would have to switch from the buggies, because even though with Geoff's help Carrie would be better with the controller, I still don't find her to be enough to finish the course in time, and also them switching stemmed a lot more from Carrie being annoyed at Devin not listening to her, which she is still doing. The final parts of this episode play out the same as the original. Carrie and Devin have their moment with the magic, where Devin realizes he loves Carrie, and Carrie realizes she needs to stop trying with Devin, because cliches, and then they come in last after the ice dancers, but are not eliminated due to the non-elimination round. The ice dancers are again very upset at the best friends and the fact that they are still here after losing last episode, leading to Jose making an ironic comment about how losers shouldn't be here at all, conveniently forgetting that they came last once and only stayed because it was a non-elimination. Instead of planning to enact a plan to get the Goths eliminated now, they would focus again on getting the best friends eliminated. As it's causing a bit of a drift between Jose and Jock that Jose failed at getting them eliminated last time, so to repair their bond, they decide to work together on getting the best friends eliminated. During the initial bus ride of all the teams, the ice dancers still scope out the best friends as they did the Goths to try and find a weakness, and with Devin being awkward around Carrie due to now having feelings for her, they see that he's making a lot of awkward mistakes and detect that as their weakness. Once all the teams get off the bus, the ice dancers stay back to talk with Devin about Carrie, and how she seems less close around him, and suggest that maybe she's pulling away. Devin, being desperate and also very dumb, listens along, asking what they think he can do to save it. Jose responds that girls admire when a guy does something very brave and selfless for them. He needs to show that he's willing to do anything to make her life easier. Devin takes the advice to heart, thanks the ice dancers, and runs to catch up to Carrie. The first challenge involves one member of the team choosing to get a varying level of hot pepper that will determine how high a platform the other member has to jump from into water. And Devin, wanting to show his selfless spirit to Carrie, tells her he'll jump and she can eat the mildest pepper. He suggested jumping originally, but Carrie told him it was okay since she knows he has a fear of heights. But Devin is much pushier about needing to show his dedication to helping her with the talk from the ice dancers, quickly runs towards the ladder before Carrie can object. Carrie is a bit confused by Devin's strong selfless act from last episode, but doesn't stop him and takes the mildest pepper. Owen obviously would be doing the eating because he loves eating, and he also stated he has a fear jumping off cliffs into water after the first episode of Island. I see Owen being too curious about the flavor of the hottest pepper and needs to try to satiate this curiosity, so does so, causing a lot of pain to himself, but allows Noah to jump from the shortest height. Bridgette would die for her team since she's the more experienced swimmer between the two, and Geoff is much more of a foodie. Geoff would just stay baseline at the medium pepper like he did for Brody originally. Stephanie originally ate the mildest pepper to punish Ryan, but now that they are on good terms, she would go for the hottest one to ease his suffering, which she is able to keep down, but struggles a lot in doing so. Devin reaches the top of the highest dive spot, excited to impress Carrie, but as he looks down, he realizes the error of his mistake, as the height is debilitatingly high for someone with a fear of heights. Emma and Noah are still distracted by each other going for the dives, making Kitty more irritated with this after she talked with Emma about this and already feeling worse from having the hot pepper. Originally, Geoff and Brody ate gas station burritos while on the bus that slowed them down after this dive because they had stomach issues to resolve. Owen on the cast, I absolutely think he would have eaten all those burritos now because big foodie, upset stomach, that's his whole character, so has to go excuse himself in the bushes, to the annoyance of Noah that he's slowing them down and ruining the mood between him and Emma. Emma suggests they stay back to help them, but again, Kitty being easily irritable from the hot pepper and watching Emma letting herself get distracted by Noah, grabs Emma's arm and forces them to move on in the challenge. Devin is still waiting on the top of the jump, terrified to do it. Carrie yells up to him, asking if he's good, noticing he's taking very long. Devin lies, saying he's just stretching first. Carrie can sense this is too hard for him and attempts to walk back to choose a hotter pepper, but Dawn stops her, informing them that she already got the flag for her chosen pepper, and there's no takebacks now. The top of this challenge would again be the Goths because they did very good at the peppers, and without the ice dancers sabotaging them, I don't see them having any massive hurdles that would interfere with their placement. Second place is the ice dancers because they originally came second, and I see no reason they still couldn't. And third being Geoff and Bridgette. Bridgette's an amazing diver, and I think every other team besides them would have had some sort of setback that slowed them down, where I don't think Geoff and Bridgette really have something like that. The haters are riding on a mule together, with Stephanie sitting on Ryan's lap, cheesily enjoying the scenery. The sisters ride shortly behind them. Emma is continually arguing with Kitty about what she did, leading to a full-blown fight between the two, where Kitty asks if Emma would rather just compete with Noah at this point, and send Kitty back home. Emma is a little hurt that Kitty would even ask that, but her pride refuses her to back away from it, responding that if she had the choice, then maybe she would. And if Kitty really cared so much about the race, then maybe she should stop taking all those stupid photos. Kitty is disheartened by Emma disavowing the memories Kitty is trying to preserve between them, and bites back that maybe she will. And after Emma plans out her dream marriage with Noah, Kitty will make sure to stay far away from it, and then Emma can have Laura be her maid of honor, since those are the only two things she seems to care about anymore. The haters cringe at hearing their bickering and have a confessional asking how a team can possibly dislike each other so much. The haters finish 4th outside of the top 3, for the first time in a while, but they hardly care, just happy to be in each other's presence. Carrie yells up to Devin and asks him why he insisted so much on doing this when he obviously couldn't, and seeing as they have free time away from really focusing on the challenge anymore, Devin yells back down, confessing what he was trying to do with impressing her. Carrie asks why he would need to impress her, she already thinks he's amazing. Devin is flattered and admits he thinks she's amazing too. Like, amazinger. Carrie's face flushes a bit from the compliment and repeats back up to him, amazinger? Devin says it again and tells Carrie he thinks she's the most amazing person in the world. And he loves her. Carrie is extremely excited to hear this and tells Devin to wait up there, she's coming to see him. Devin tells her no, he's coming down to see her, and readies himself to jump off. He does so in a heroic display that ends with him belly flopping onto the water. Carrie cringes at the deafening sound and quickly swims in to save him. When she helps him resurface and checks that he's okay, she pulls him in for their first kiss. The bottom is obviously the best friends for that entire delay, and Noah and Owen because of Owen's. And despite the best friends getting back in the game, I still do think they'd come in last and be eliminated. I do think it'd be close, and Noah was struggling a lot with motivation to win the race once Emma said that they'd get back together after the race. But now seeing as them being eliminated right now means he gets less time with Emma, he'd kick back into gear and continue their small lead over the best friends. Best friends are moderately fine with being eliminated though, as Carrie is obviously ecstatic to finally be with Devin after all the years of them being best friends, and them getting together is about as good a consolation prize they can get. The ice dancers seeing the Goths go take the Dawn box first makes them annoyed at not being first in a while, and also notice the Goths' ongoing win streak, making them plan to target them next. Bridget and Geoff are sad for the best friends being eliminated after having warned them of the ice dancers, but this confirms their suspicions all the more that the ice dancers were actively sabotaging them to get them eliminated, and puts them on very high alert. Emma and Kitty are still at very tense odds as Owen and Noah approach them while they are all trying to get cabs. Owen tries to dissolve their arguing, but it proves frivolous as they continue bickering, and when 2 cabs come at the same time, Kitty pushes Emma into Noah, telling her to just take a ride of him if she wants to forget Kitty's even her partner. Emma takes Kitty's offer and grabs Noah's hand, dragging him into a taxi of her, and Owen takes one of Kitty. During those taxi rides, both Noah and Owen try to respectively talk with the sister they are riding with to figure out what happened / help resolve it, but neither of them are able to get much as both the sisters just rambly complain about one another. And when Noah and Owen meet up again, they confirm that neither of them got much of anything, and look worriedly at the sisters as they shoot daggers at each other. Based on placement and just these 3 teams not having any issues that will slow them down as the other 3 do, I think the first 3 teams to be formed into a super team for the next challenge of collecting 6 catfish would be the Ice Dancers, the Goths, and Geoff and Bridgette. Both the Ice Dancers and Geoff and Bridgette are awkward about pairing up. The Ice Dancers are ignored that they can't really sabotage the Goths with them being on the same team now, and Geoff and Bridgette feel worried about being on a team with the Ice Dancers. The Goths don't really care, leaving the sisters, Owen and Noah, and the daters to become a team. Henri has a blank expression on his face as he holds Loki in his hands while sitting on the boat. Crimson asks him what's wrong. He looks devastated. Henri says he wants to go into the water. It looks so cold and murky, like death. But he can't let Loki in the water. At this comment, Geoff quickly makes his way back onto the boat and offers to stay on the boat to keep Loki safe. Henri is a bit unsure, but Loki wants Henri to have this experience of going in the murky death water, so hops over into Geoff's hands, making the decision for Henri. Geoff has a confessional recounting on his last experience with babysitting DJ's bunny in Island, and he's always wanted to make up for it by protecting another bunny like he was unable to do with DJ's. Jock notices Henri's care for Loki and looks over to an alligator on shore, getting an idea of how to throw the Goths off their game by getting Loki hurt with the alligator. The sisters continue to bicker on the super team as Emma tries to lead the team with her strategy, and Kitty notes how typical that is for her to be bossy like this. The daters are very annoyed at this fighting and get involved in the fight themselves, telling them to stop whining and just focus on the challenge. It's not that hard. This makes the sisters now work together to argue back against them for the irony of that statement, mentioning they've been fighting the entire race. Both teams yell loudly at each other, while Owen and Noah try and defuse the situation. Noah has a confessional admitting that he usually takes some joy out of watching a bunch of idiots bicker about nothing, but when one of them is your sort of girlfriend, you can't find enjoyment watching her in any sort of distress. Jock talks with Geoff on the boat together, making conversations about Loki and asking to hold him. Geoff, having learned to be very careful watching bunnies from his previous failed experience, and already being distrustful of the ice dancers, tells Jock that Loki actually seems a bit shy, so he thinks letting someone hold him that he doesn't want to might be like the bad idea of a man. Jock squints his eyes and tries to ask again, even reaching his hand towards Loki. Loki in response bites down on Jock's finger, making him retract his hand. Geoff tells Jock he's sorry, but that seems like a sign. Jose taunts Jock in confessional for being scared off by a bunny, but Jock has bigger concerns, noting that Geoff refused to let him watch Loki, wondering why Geoff would be suspicious since Geoff is naturally trusting of everyone. Jose agrees that is odd, and they both start to build a suspicion that Geoff and Bridgette, despite their nice act, are onto them. Jock was originally the one to find the catfish that allowed his team to skip straight to the finish line, and I see no reason he still wouldn't now, so all 3 of these teams, the Goths, the Ice Dancers, and Geoff and Bridgette, tie for first place. Also, like the original, the Ice Dancers suggest if the 3 teams worked well together, they should keep this alliance going. Geoff and Bridgette agree with, and Henri, feeling thankful for Geoff's help with Loki, also makes the Goths agree. The Ice Dancers would still want to do this for the reason they did with the cadets to make it easier to betray the Goths when the time's right and get them eliminated, and also consider doing the same to Geoff and Bridgette for catching on to them, but more so as a way to try and ease their suspicions. Geoff and Bridgette agree to it to try and make sure the Ice Dancers won't mess with them, and being closer to them would allow them to confirm their suspicions if they're actually bad people. Once the other mega team realizes the first mega team finished, they realize there isn't much they can do anymore, but Stephanie is reassured that at least they don't have to work together, and all the teams agree to collect the catfishes needed to continue, and then it's a race between the 3 of them to not get last. Ryan has a confessional of Stephanie, a bit annoyed by her suggestion since it's known at this point of how bad Noah and Emma have been hiding it that Noah, and the sisters are close teams, and Ryan bets they will work together to beat the daters. That little conflict causes some of their previous arguing to reappear, but Stephanie reassures Ryan that they are stronger, faster, and smarter than both the other teams combined. They will be fine. When the remaining teams get to the caves, all the teams still split up. Noah and Owen would be working with the sisters, but Kitty still wants Emma away from Noah, and it would also be better for them to split up to explore more paths and find the Dawn box quicker. The sisters still go down their tunnel, and then Noah and Owen go down a different tunnel. As the sisters walk through the caves, Emma still has the ground crumble beneath her and open up a spike trap below. Kitty saves her from getting impaled on by grabbing her hands as she falls down. Kitty tries to pull Emma up, but like the original, struggles to do so, and calls for help to lift Emma. Both of the other teams would hear this plea, making Noah and Owen run into action to try and find them. Ryan hears the lifting part and knows that he could help because he's jacked, but Stephanie tells them they aren't wasting their time with them, and to keep it moving. Emma, facing near death, apologizes to Kitty for ignoring her concerns and being so controlling, and Kitty apologizes herself for putting Emma in the situation of having a boyfriend and Noah but not being allowed to express it. She just wanted Emma to be happy. Emma responds that she already is. Being in this race for her best friend in the whole world is all she could ever want. Well, that and $1 million. Kitty chuckles a bit and says ditto. They both begin to panic as Kitty's grip begins to slip. Just before Emma is dropped, Noah and Owen arrive and help Kitty pull her up. Noah and Owen hear Stephanie taunting the other teams for being at the Dawn box already, making them both stand up to quickly try and stay ahead of them. The sisters have a small moment where Kitty asks Emma if she really meant that, and Emma just answers by pulling her in for a hug, before they realize they have to continue in the race. The daters, having stayed ahead, already make it onto the finish line, as both the other teams begin running out of the cave. Owen and Noah are ahead of the sisters, but Noah realizing if they finish, that means Emma will be eliminated, and him having already shown signs of not caring about the race more than Emma, asks Owen to let them sacrifice themselves. Owen is a little bummed by the suggestion, but his heart is too touched by seeing how much his buddy's cold heart warmed up that he's willing to sacrifice himself for someone, and agrees to let the sisters pass. After the sisters realize what they did, Noah confesses how he couldn't bear to watch Emma feel that dismay of losing. Emma looks over for Kitty's approval, and she excitedly tells her to go kiss her Romeo, and Emma does so rather quickly to the delight of Owen and Kitty. The first 3 teams collect the first clue together, all pretending to be chummy, even the Goths having a blank face, but revealing confessional that it's really draining on them to be acting this positive with the others. Ryan has a confessional of Stephanie not feeling right about what they did yesterday. Stephanie is dismissive, saying they agree that her aggression being placed on others is how they win, so he can't be getting all warm-hearted for the other teams now. Ryan says he isn't being warm-hearted, he's just not wanting to let someone die. Stephanie counters that Emma is clearly still here, they were probably just acting like they were in danger so they could get the daters eliminated. Ryan is doubtful that was the case, but stops pushing on it. On the plane, Geoff and Bridgette approach the Goths to tell them their suspicion about the ice dancers, especially Jock wanting to hold Loki, and both the Goths pick up on Loki's vibes that he thinks the ice dancers are bad news too. As they talk about this, the ice dancers walk by, and they have to try and pretend they were talking about something else, but Geoff and Bridgette, not being the best liars, raises suspicion even more for the ice dancers, that Geoff and Bridgette know they are sabotaging people. All the teams get on the same flight and remain neck and neck through getting to the frozen over ice lake to change into the swimsuits and ride ice yachts. Noticing that Geoff and Bridgette were bad-mouthing them, the ice dancers decide they are tired of trying to play nice and do some sabotage by pushing Bridgette into a trash can, getting her tongue stuck to it from the cold, which is ironically reminiscent of the pole. Geoff and Bridgette call for the help of the ice dancers, but they ignore them and continue on the ice. This now confirms to Geoff and Bridgette that the ice dancers are indeed sabotaging. The Goths would still be back here changing into their swimsuits because with how goth they are, sure their swimsuits cover a lot more and take longer to put on. So during this, Jose also messes with the Goths' ice yacht to slow them down, as they did with the cadets originally. Sisters and daters fight each other on the ice now, since both still hold animosity towards each other for yesterday. Ryan tries to apologize to the sisters for this, but neither Emma or Kitty are very receptive to his attempt, as he's still obeying Stephanie's request to repeatedly ram into them. From here, the episode plays out basically the same, just in slightly different ways. Jose would steal Kitty's ball that she finds after going down the ravine, and breaks her headlight to get themselves first place. Ryan still goes down for the daters, as even though they are on better terms, Stephanie is still a control freak and wants control over what they do in the challenge because Ryan's been diverting from what she wants recently. Speaking of, Ryan really wants to help Kitty find a ball even more than the original because he wants to make up for their team rivalry, but Stephanie cranks him them out before he can, making them bicker all over again. I'm not sure how the Geoffs or Geoff and Bridgette would manage with the ways they got sabotaged, but I think they would both be able to resolve them, especially with each other's help. And with Kitty still having no way of finding a ball at the bottom of the ravine, I think they'd have plenty of time to catch up to the sisters. The Geoffs would excel at the ravine part of the challenge, so they would both be very comfortable in the dark. Bridgette, being the kind-hearted person she is, when she finds out Jose is the one who sabotaged Kitty, decides to help her find a ball. And I have a hunch that Geoff outmatches Emma in upper body strength, for no particular reason, so he'd be able to pull Bridgette up from the ravine quicker, making the sisters come in last, but not be eliminated. With all the teams that the ice dancers outwardly sabotaged, everyone would now be aware of their sabotaging ways, but this doesn't concern the ice dancers anymore, as they think they are far and above the best team left. Ryan tries to get Stephanie to come with him to smooth things over with the sisters on the plane, but it doesn't end up working, because Emma can tell Stephanie is being disingenuous about the apology. The ice dancers would sabotage Geoff and Bridgette during the first challenge of collecting leaves by opening the bottom of their baskets instead of the sisters like the original. Heat originally interfered with the integrity of the Geoff's makeup when they were in the hot sauna, and this location was also very hot, so I think they would both panic at their makeup starting to smear. I don't think it instantly disappears as it did with the sauna, because that was also after they went into water. It would stress them out to see that the Geoff is starting to fade off. Stephanie still suffers in the heat, and seeing the sisters finish early, asks them for some help. They both ignore. The order of teams that finish into the next challenge onto the train carts would be the ice dancers first because they got first originally, the sisters second because they originally were doing very good at the challenge of the leaves, but then obviously got sabotaged by the ice dancers. Think of how them being sabotaged and also the other teams having things that messed up more, they'd be able to get second. The Geoffs come in third because I don't think they'd have anything that messed with them too much. The makeup is definitely a little bit of a thing, but Geoff and Bridgette come in fourth because they got sabotaged losing all their leaves, which is obviously big, and the daters were originally just very bad at this challenge because Stephanie was really struggling in the heat. The train cart challenge, the ice dancers were in the first train cart. There was a train cart between them and second, with the sisters had to go through, train cart between the Geoffs and sisters they had to go through, and so on and so on. So sisters have to get through the goats here, the Geoffs have to get through a massive bowl to get here, and Geoff and Bridgette have to go through a chicken to get here, and then, still continue down the chain of going down the other animals. We don't know what the daters had to go through to get to this train cart, but it doesn't really matter because they're going to be basically doing the same thing as they did in the original. Usually, I think the Geoffs would be able to easily pass the bull, as they show very little emotion, so the bull would see they aren't afraid of it and submit. However, with them more on edge from their makeup smearing, the bull would be susceptible to detecting their tension and charges at them. Geoff and Bridgette would fare okay at passing through the chicken cart. Originally, it was very hard for Emma and Kitty because the chickens began scratching them when they walked in. Geoff has experience charging through dangerous situations, and Bridgette is very in touch with nature and animals, and could be good at pacifying the chickens. I could even see it being like a total drama thing of Bridgette's a vegetarian, she has never ate a chicken, so chickens can detect that on Bridgette, so they're very nice to her. Because that just feels like the kind of ridiculous thing total drama would have, morally detecting chickens that can sense if you've eaten meat before. So either way they choose to go about getting through this cart, whether they do choose to charge through with Geoff's intuition or Bridgette's ability to pacify the chickens, I think they have an advantage over a lot of other teams in facing the chickens. The daters wouldn't be as affectionate with each other in the last cart, but I do still think they would spend most of the challenge talking to each other about what they are and how they should continue, because Stephanie was a lot more receptive to listening to Ryan this episode after he coached her through completing the first challenge. The sisters still have a smart idea of going on top of the carts to avoid making it through the animals. Originally the sisters were on the fourth cart back and were still able to make it to the first cart before Jose and Jock disconnected the train. So now they only have to make it past one cart, they'd make it on top of the first cart far before Jock disconnects the train. Kitty sees Jock doing it and wants to stop him, but Emma stops Kitty and tells her it could be really good for them if they let them do this, because they guarantee first and they don't have to deal with the repercussions of disconnecting the train themselves. Kitty doesn't like the idea of letting the ice dancers do this, especially since Bridgette helped them out yesterday and she would feel bad about letting this happen to them. Emma says that despite Bridgette's help, they still came last. They need to stop relying and giving back to other teams and start focusing on the game, like Kitty told her to stop focusing on Noah and Owen. Plus, if they do this, they might get the daters eliminated. Kitty sees that Emma is right and tells her she's no fun when she lures so well. Emma looks prideful, saying she really is good at it, isn't she? So Emma and Kitty secretly jump onto the first cart while the ice dancers are still trying to disconnect the train. Geoff and Bridgette get into the car with the Geoffs that are still freaking out about their makeup smearing off. Geoff and Bridgette try to be nice and tell them it's not that bad. The Geoffs catch onto their lying and freak out internally even more at the idea of seeing each other on Geoff again. Stephanie, like the original, becomes more complimentary of Ryan and feels bad for the way she's been disregarding his opinion. Causes them to get along like they did in the original, with Ryan saying she needs to learn to respect his opinion more and realize that sometimes she might be wrong and he might be right. Stephanie agrees and says he isn't the slouch she made him out to be. He makes her better. Ryan smiles and shares a sentiment, saying her passion makes him better too. Ryan notices again, like the original, that Stephanie is still sweaty and takes off his shirt to let her dry off of it, making the sparks between them reignite. The Geoffs are sitting across from each other, discussing the fear of having to see each other on Geoff again, and hold each other's hands, saying they will try to learn to accept that side of each other like they were forced to do before. Loki is tired of hearing all their worries and seeing it slow them down, so he jumps out of Henri's shirt, shakes off his Geoff makeup, and runs towards the bull cart that Geoff and Bridgette were opening the door to, but staying outside of it to think about how they should go about passing it. The door closes behind Loki, and crashing is heard. The Geoffs quickly stand up and run to the door, afraid for Loki. When the door opens up, Loki is seen standing on top of the head of the bull that seems terrified. Geoff and Bridgette also seem a bit scared by the sight, but the Geoffs crack the tiniest smile at the scene. The Geoffs have a confessional, realizing the lesson that Loki taught them. It doesn't matter how they look. They will always be dead where it matters the most. On the inside. Just like it doesn't matter if Loki is covered up in Geoff makeup himself or not, he will always be the bringer of famine and death. Using the bull to their advantage, the Geoffs and Geoff and Bridgette get through the bull cart and the go-kart just in time to see the ice dancers disconnect the first cart from the rest. With Loki still riding the bull, he jumps it down to the ground and gets it to flatten its back for the Geoffs to ride it too. The Geoffs get on and look to each other, deciding if they should invite Geoff and Bridgette as well, and ultimately decide to do so because of how they've been helping them out with the ice dancers. The ice dancers still get the 1 hour penalty when they arrive to the carpet. Sisters still come in first by riding in on the first cart, and Geoffs come in next, getting second while riding in on the bull. Dawn is terrified by seeing the Geoffs' faces from the bull ride has not fully wiped off their makeup, but has done so enough that you can see parts of their normal faces, making it look like they are real humans trapped in the body of the Geoffs. The Geoffs thank Dawn for the compliment. Bridgette and Geoff come in third shortly after, and the illumination still plays out the same, with the daters catching up to the carpet but getting distracted by their love for each other, allowing the ice dancers to save themselves from elimination. Near the beginning of the race, Geoff and Bridgette with the Geoffs talk to the sisters about the ice dancers' sabotage and suggest they all work together to make sure they go home today. The sisters agree to this idea, but after the other teams walk away, they look to each other and have a confessional, acknowledging that the ice dancers are heinous, but they're in the final four now, and every team is strong. If they want to win, they have to focus on themselves. That won't stop them from disadvantaging the ice dancers when the chances arise. Otherwise though, they won't be spending any energy on helping the other teams. The ice dancers still complete the tango on the very first try, to the annoyance of the other teams. Bridgette insists that they can still get them eliminated if they work together to finish the tango, and the next challenge slows the ice dancers down. The sisters and Geoffs agree. However, the sisters immediately have a confessional afterwards, saying that's not going to happen. Geoff and Bridgette originally weren't here for this challenge, so I have to assess how I think they would do, and I don't think either of them would be very good at this. Bridgette is notoriously clumsy, and I do believe Geoff has rhythm and isn't a bad dancer. I don't think he would have the grace and memorization to perform this dance together well. The Geoffs also weren't here, and when considering how they would perform in this, there are two sides. One side is that I think being Geoff, they would hate dancing, since it's like the most outward expression of personality and emotion you can do with your body. The other side though is that they are both very graceful and agile with their bodies. Also, this dance isn't really done with happy expression. It's a tango. It's not like a salsa breakdance or something. The emotion is much more intimate and somber, right up their alley. They would finish just after the ice dancers on their second attempt, making the ice dancers annoyed just before they leave. The Geoffs decide to not leave yet to help the sisters and Geoff and Bridgette go over the dances and stay true to their pact. The sisters would go right after and finish, then Geoff and Bridgette would try and fail spectacularly again. Geoff and Bridgette look to the sisters for help too, but the sisters quickly grab the next tip and continue the next challenge, breaking the pact. The Geoffs have a confessional talking about how cold that was with the sisters, admitting they hate them, yet also kind of respect them for it. Originally, the Ice Dancers greased up the sisters' emu to make it harder for them to capture it, but now I think they would do it to the Goths instead. They still recognize, as they did earlier, that they are an extremely strong team, and they want to focus their efforts on getting them eliminated. Especially after being reminded of how strong they were in the dancing, which is their thing. Kitty was originally very good at throwing the balls at her emu. Full pause. It only took so long because the dancers greased it up. Without the grease, they'd be able to finish quickly and leave before the Ice Dancers to get first place. The Goths worry watching Geoff and Bridgette continuously fly off and miss the dances more and more. As the time runs out, they realize the plan to get them all through the dancing quickly to catch up to the Ice Dancers so the Ice Dancers get eliminated doesn't seem like it's going to work anymore. So do the Goths continue trying to help Geoff and Bridgette to potentially their own demise? At first, with how cold the Goths are, it seems obvious they wouldn't care enough to try and help them. But we see how close the Goths got with Loki, willing to let themselves be eliminated in the original elimination episode just to make sure no one gets left behind. Meaning the Goths are capable of this level of loyalty. The question instead becomes if Geoff and Bridgette have earned this loyalty. They have done a lot for the Goths in protecting Loki from the Ice Dancers and warning them about the Ice Dancers. The thing is, the Goths also helped them yesterday, letting them ride the bull and helping them just dance as much as they have. I think the Goths would figure that the debt has been repaid, and they can't let themselves be eliminated just to continue helping them. They tell Geoff and Bridgette they have to go and continue in the challenge. The Ice Dancers just about finished capturing their emu and getting into a taxi, being able to laugh at the Goths, noticing the greased up emu just before they leave in the taxi. Even though they are not fit for the challenge, I do think with enough tries, Geoff would be able to learn the moves and Bridgette would have enough muscle memory to not mess herself up with the steps. And seeing as the Goths have to ball up a greased emu, again a task that slowed down the sisters all the way to last, when Kitty, who was pretty good at throwing the balls, had to deal with the greased up emu, Bridgette and Geoff would have enough time to complete the dance, head to the emus, and honestly I think Geoff would be able to get their emu before Crimson is able to get the Goths. Geoff feels bad about the idea of leaving the Goths, knowing they are undoubtedly here because of the Ice Dancer's sabotage, so he offers to help Crimson catch her emu. Crimson asks why he still wants to help them after the Goths left them. Geoff doesn't give a straight answer, just excusing that it was so fun to round up his, he can't help but jump at the opportunity to do it again. Crimson and Geoff working together, get her emu in a taxi, at which point both of them agree to have a final race to the chill zone. They both get back to their taxis, where Crimson explains to Ennui what Geoff did, shocking him as much as he can be shocked. Bridgette noticed the Goths catching up, and Geoff explains what he did. Bridgette asks why, knowing that helping them means he worsened their chance of not coming last, and Geoff says that isn't how he wants them to win. The Goths are only still this far back because they stayed back to try and help them with that dancing in the first place. In a wave of competitors like the Ice Dancers, it's important to show the world that in the end, the good will prevail. Bridgette is moved by Geoff's reasoning and tries to hug him, but can't with the emu in between them, instead just opting to hold his hand. I think just because the Goths still have to carry a greased up emu up the hill to the chill zone, they would still come in last just shortly after Geoff and Bridgette. Without Kitty having been directing the greased up emu, nobody would be rammed off the cliff and have to bring someone else in to take their place, and this was a non-elimination, so the Goths would not be eliminated. The sisters still find the Ridonculous Race banded map first in the gift shop and continue to the jet skis. Originally, Brody found the map for him and Geoff, so without him here, I think it would take Bridgette and Geoff longer to find one. The Goths weren't here originally, so I don't know exactly how they do, and there's also just mostly luck in finding a map, so I can't be certain how they would do. But I do think they would have the advantage of not stressing out under pressure because they show no emotion, and they probably have an interest in pirate maps since it seems like the type of historical mythology they'd be interested in. So they would have a slight advantage and find a map after the sisters. In the original, the Ice Dancers tried to steal the cadets' map, and I think they would still try to attempt that here with Geoff and Bridgette. I'm not fully sure that they would be able to pull it off with Geoff and Bridgette already being very wary of them, but considering there's also the chance that the Ice Dancers could just find a map before Geoff and Bridgette, I give them the advantage of leaving before them. The next challenge involved a person from each team to have the next clue in their hand, be the one to dive under with the scuba gear through an underwater cave system to find gold and get out. I have no way of being sure about who would grab the clue for the Goths and for Geoff and Bridgette, because it's such a random thing to decide. I'm just gonna try and make some educated guesses. Based on the fact that Ennui has Loki with him and has to keep an eye on him now, and maybe like a closer eye on him because they switch out the normal clothes into swim clothes, so maybe there isn't enough room for Loki in his swimsuit shirt. You have to focus on that more, meaning Crimson would be more likely to grab the clue for them and dive under. Originally, Brody went under for him and Geoff, showing Geoff wasn't the most eager to grab the clue before Brody. Geoff might just be too enthusiastic about riding the jet ski there, since I imagine he'd be really pumped about being able to do that. Bridgette is more likely to grab the clue and swim under. Katie still gets to the treasure first, but gets dragged away by a fish that ate her flashlight, leading her to get stuck between two rocks. Crimson arrives to the treasure next and makes her way out of the tunnels. Bridgette arrives to the treasure shortly before Jose, who has to swim to an air pocket in the water cave because she used up too much of her oxygen. Bridgette would contemplate, but obviously end up swimming up Jose to help her make it to the surface, because Bridgette's a good person and I could never imagine her leaving someone screaming for help in a tiny cramped air pocket, even if they are a terrible person. And with what Geoff said yesterday about them having to be the good in this race, I definitely think that would help support Bridgette, that she has to help people even if they don't deserve it. The Goths get to the golden carpet first and continue to the next part of the finale. It would still be a final 3-foot race to the carpet between the other teams, as they all get on shore at almost the same time. Jose would still play underhanded and throw a coconut at Geoff or Bridgette. This ensures second place for the Ice Dancers and leaves it between Geoff and Bridgette or the sisters for elimination. Originally, after the cadets got hit with a coconut, Sanders carried MacArthur with enough time to just barely beat out the sisters. The cadets are much faster runners than Geoff and Bridgette with their police training, however, carrying Bridgette would be much easier for Geoff than MacArthur was for Sanders. But if they hit Geoff with the coconut, then I definitely don't think Bridgette would be able to carry Geoff quick enough to get them to the carpet before the sisters. I am more inclined to say that she would hit Bridgette, since the cadets were running side by side, and she hit MacArthur that was slightly behind, probably because she just did a lot of swimming, so she was slightly more tired, so slightly more behind, and Bridgette now just did a lot of the swimming, so she'd be more likely to be the one slightly behind, making it a lot more likely for her to be hit by the coconut. Even if Jose was targeting Geoff, it would be hard to throw it past Bridgette to make it hit Geoff. With that knowledge, I think Geoff would be able to carry Bridgette fairly quickly and keep themselves in the race, eliminating the sisters. The finale begins with every team having confessionals, talking about being so close to the million, and being excited to win, except for the Goths who do say they're excited but don't show the emotion. The Ice Dancers ram into Geoff and Bridgette's taxi since they originally rammed into the Surfer Dude's taxi that was ahead of them, and I still think with Geoff being the driver as he was in the original, he'd still be ahead of them. They'd still ram into them, and this makes Geoff and Bridgette crash their taxi being unable to use it and have to take the subway. Without the cadets to stop the New York traffic jam with the police siren imitation, the Goths and the Ice Dancers would waste a lot of time with the traffic, allowing Bridgette and Geoff to get up the stairs to grab a suitcase and down the stairs before any other team even arrives there. This is a double-edged sword, however, since the Surfer Dudes were originally able to take the Ice Dancers' cab once they got down because the Ice Dancers were there, without any other team being there yet, they'd be forced to still continue on foot. When the Goths parked at the Empire State Building after the Ice Dancers and see their taxi, they plan to get some revenge on them for ramming into Bridgette and Geoff, and also everything they've done the entire race. Ennui places Loki on the ground, and Loki runs out in the car with a sinister look. The Goths get down the stairs and out the building last after the Ice Dancers, who drive off taunting them. Ennui picks up Loki, and Loki spits out a piece of coiled rope that looks like part of the brake line. Crimson and Ennui crack a tiny smile at Loki's work, while Crimson scratches Loki on the head for his good work. The Ice Dancers ride back on the road, and when they have to stop for traffic, Jock realizes the brakes aren't working, and they ram into the back of another car. This conflict leaves the door open for the Goths to pass, and being a car, I believe they would get to the first carpet before the other teams. Geoff and Bridgette, despite having the large lead they did, had to take most of the path on foot, which would definitely slow them down. But since the Ice Dancers have to deal with the crash with the other car, they'd also have to go on foot afterwards because their taxi was totaled. Still being very tired, Geoff and Bridgette would be able to make it to the carpet before the Ice Dancers, getting them eliminated with the same freakout from Jose like the original. Now if you're new to my channel, usually when I get to the finales of my what-ifs, I changed the style of writing from trying to predict what would happen to more rewriting it, because all the outcomes are already determined by the time of the finale, because there's alternate winners, so it's like there's two finalists, both of them going to win anyways. So I just want to try and end their stories on satisfying notes by rewriting whatever needs to be tinkered to make it possible and likely for both of them to win. I didn't do it for this first part of the finale because there were still 3 teams, so it wasn't predetermined yet who would win and what two teams would have the alternate winnings. But now that I have the Geoffs and Geoff and Bridgette as finalists, they're both gonna win, so I can rewrite the finale now. But the thing is, there just isn't that much to rewrite at this point. We're already like mostly through the finale, and I would like to change the challenge because I think the challenge of just them riding on boats and looking at random combinations under buoys to try and find the combination for their suitcase is a really boring finale. Usually when I rewrite finales, I'm trying to like tinker the original concept of the final challenge to make it work better, but I usually never do something of like generally rewriting the entire finale challenge. Nothing I can really do to change that. Instead, I'm just going to make a tiny change that at least helps make it make more sense why Geoff and Bridgette were able to make up time after coming behind the Geoffs and still being exhausted. Instead of the briefcases just needing a random combination, each suitcase should be made custom to need multiple combinations to be opened. When they arrive on the dock, they see that each buoy has the faces of every team from the race. Both teams get a trivia sheet that has some questions about the teams from the race. The answer to the question is the team's buoy that has one of the combinations their briefcase needs. Meeting the Geoffs would obviously lose some time from this since they hardly cared about any other team, while Geoff and Bridgette would be better because they did go out of their way to make connections with other teams. As the teams are competing in this final challenge, previously eliminated teams are asked their opinions on the final two teams and who they're rooting for. Geoff and Bridgette would have most of the support, but certain teams like the Cadets and Step Brothers would be rooting for the Geoffs for being more strong and also getting the Ice Dancers eliminated. There's alternate winning endings for both of them. I didn't really try to think of like a cause that makes the alternate winning endings happen because I feel like in a race it's pretty easy to just say Geoff and Bridgette are slightly more ahead and they win, or oh, Geoffs are slightly more ahead and they win. But I do feel like an easy one to do is, Geoff has the last buoy and the alternate winning endings are decided on either Geoff accidentally dropping the buoy into Geoff and Bridgette's boat, making it sink, and they have to swim out of the lake, which loses them a lot of time, so that's the ending where the Geoffs would win, or the alternate ending where Geoff and Bridgette win, Geoff just doesn't drop the buoy in the boat, or Bridgette stops him, something like that. In the Geoffs winning ending, Dawn repeatedly lays out the price of the Geoffs to try and get any sort of reaction out of them. They finally both wear a huge grin for Dawn, bringing him to tears. In Bridgette and Geoff's winning ending, they pull each other into a hug and excitedly celebrate. Dawn tries to close off the show and declare them as winners, leading to Geoff cutting him off by trying to pull him into a hug. Dawn tries to push back at first, but when Geoff finally captures him in a hug, Dawn accepts it. And there you go, that was What If Geoff and Bridgette competed in the Ridonculous Race. This What If wasn't spectacular in what it changed, but I do think it was fun to examine Geoff and Bridgette as more central characters to the plot, because in all of their seasons in Total Drama, they were always kind of footnotes. Even in Island, their most prominent season, by the time of the merge, neither of them really do much of anything, and even pre-merge is mostly just them building up to their relationship. And I also feel like certain areas of their relationship, like dynamics, were kind of sped through. Like, I understand that they're both very forgiving people, but the fact that the same episode that Geoff confronts Bridgette for cheating on him with Alejandro is the same episode that Geoff forgives her, just a little ridiculous. Like, I feel like things like that should have been expanded a lot more for their relationship in the Total Drama seasons. So I do think it was fun to, revisit those topics in the Ridonculous Race, even though I couldn't expand them a ton, because again, as I said, I don't think it makes sense for them to still be fighting about it now. Like, it makes sense for Geoff to still be mad at her for doing that during World Tour, but like, this is now set in Ridonculous Race. World Tour was like canonically like 2-3 years ago at this point. Geoff has already learned to forgive her. Bridgette already learned to forgive him a long time ago for the evil action aftermath hosting. Really doesn't make sense for those wounds to be like fully reopened and them have to relearn to heal when they already have learned to forgive each other for those things. So it's kind of annoying that I was stuck a bit on how much more I could expand those plots because they were already kind of fully explored in a sense. With that being said, I do think it's nice for Geoff and Bridgette that they're two characters that are so forgiving and normal and sweet and not full of drama that it's like kind of rare that you'd have dynamics like theirs where they can forgive each other and work together so effectively. And I especially think it works well in the Ridonculous Race setting where the whole point is that they're teams and they have to function even when they get upset at each other. I'm not fully sure how I feel about writing Ridonculous Race seasons. Definitely a different beast to tackle than Total Drama seasons. I do find that writing for characters in a team setting is a lot harder. It's just really hard to make plots, especially like the plot of how the team works together, where being mad at each other for whatever sort of conflict, or working together as a well-oiled machine. It's really hard to work that balance of like making it work. Usually like in total drama season, when two people get mad at each other, it's pretty easy for them to separate and ignore each other for a time being and figure out whatever they need in that time, process the emotions, whatever. In Ridonculous Race, you don't have that option. They have to work together. They don't get to take a break. In some ways, narratively, that works better because it keeps the tension. There's no like downtime, but it also makes it harder because plots don't really have any room to breathe when it comes to interpersonal team dynamics. I don't think it's a terrible thing. It's just a different format than I'm used to. Thank you for watching. Bye.